Okay, Nick Dutch here yet again. Still continuing with the discussion of positivism, which is an important school of thought which relates to how science is done, even and probably especially these days. Alright, and we're again still using Wikipedia as a source, purely because it's convenient, no other reason than that. Okay, now this part of the essay is called Positivism in Science today, so we're getting down to the really meaty part of what positivism is about or used. The key features of positivism as of the 1950s, as defined in the received view, are: number one, a focus on science as a product, a linguistic or numerical set of statements. That again goes against what we saw in anti-positivism, and again seems rather a little too structured. A concern with axiomization, that is, with demonstrating the logical structure and coherence of those statements. So we're already seeing that positivism is very dominated by an analysis and understanding of language in a very rigid and fixed framework, to the exclusion of anything else which is slightly different, I suppose. 3. An insistence on at least some of these statements being testable, that is, amenable to being verified, confirmed, and falsified by the empirical observation of reality. The statements that would, by their nature, be regarded as untestable included in the teleological. Thus, positivism rejects much of classical metaphysics. 4. The belief that science is markedly cumulative, a belief that science is predominantly transcultural, which is a little odd there. I mean, I can again go into cultural definitions of science in greater detail in a later set of videos. The belief that science rests on specific results that are dissociated from the personality and social position of the investigator. Well, that's interesting, because from the occult point of view, taking into account the personality of the person who's actually doing the investigation is actually important. I mean, someone who can do one particular task and has refined that one particular task won't necessarily be able to do another particular task within the remit of the supernatural. So there are issues with positivism when approaching the supernatural. And also, even in psychology, if one particular person with a certain, let's just say brain structure, is given a certain number of tests to do, they'll get a certain number of results. But if another person is given another lot of tests to do, they'll get different results, because they're different types of people. So again, if we're thinking about the social and psychological sciences, certain aspects of positivism don't fit. Full stop, just don't fit. Not the whole thing. We still need to have structure of reasoning and the rest of it. 7. The belief that science contains theories or research traditions that are largely commensurable. Sorry, if I go back to point number 6, I made a mistake there. The statement was: the belief that science rests upon specific results that are disassociated from the personality and social position of the investigator. Well, what I should have said is, if you're investigating upon yourself, you might get different results than someone else who's done the same investigation upon themselves. Alright, hopefully that's cleared that one up. 8. The belief that science sometimes incorporates new ideas that are discontinuous from old ones. Alright, well, that's what I'm trying to do. So there are some positive things in positivism. The belief that science involves the idea of the unity of science, that there is underlying the various scientific disciplines, basically one science about one real world. I don't think we can say that. I don't think we can say that at all. But nevertheless, so I personally disagree with positivism in some areas. And I feel the reason I can say that is because when we're observing human behavior, I don't think that we can do it in the same way as we would observe the passage of an electron through a material, for instance. And when we're dealing with occult phenomena, they're all to do with the mind, they're to do with the body, they're to do with the whole human organism. So we can't actually use that statement number 9 when dealing with the occult or the metaphysical, or indeed the psychological aspects of the social world. So there's only some forms of positivism which can, or some aspects of positivism which can be applied to supernatural investigation, social investigation, psychological investigation. Positivism is also depicted as the view that all true knowledge is scientific, and that all things are ultimately measurable. Again, I've got some issues with that, because if you're dealing with measuring people's subjective responses, then yes, you can measure people's subjective responses, but those responses are still subjective, and you have to work out a very clear, intelligent way of doing that. And I don't think that this purely like natural science positivism can actually cover a lot of areas of sociology and psychology, for instance, and certainly not all aspects of the occult. Positivism is closely related to reductionism in that both involve the view that entities of one kind are reducible to entities of another, such as societies to numbers or mental events to chemical events. So this is another reason why us people in the occult are kind of like frowned upon, because everything is broken down in this way. Despite the fact that this comes from one particular philosophical point of view, which is important, but it certainly isn't essential. So we would need to apply some creativity to take some aspects of positivism, some aspects of anti-positivism when we're thinking about our experimental designs, and trying to get some concrete results. Okay, we're just going to move on to the criticism of positivism. Be back in a sec.